Did you know that over 80,000 Texans experience homelessness on any given night? And now, with a new law set to take effect in 2025, that number could skyrocket. We're talking about families, seniors, and even working-class people being pushed out of their home, not because they did something wrong, but because the rules are changing fast and not in their favor. This new law, quietly passed and buried in political language, could trigger a housing crisis bigger than what we saw during the pandemic. It's not just about rent going up. It's about criminalizing homelessness, cutting safety nets, and reshaping entire neighborhoods in a way that leaves thousands with nowhere to go. The worst part? Most people don't even know it's happening yet. So what exactly is in this law? Who does it target? And how close are we to a statewide housing disaster? Stick around. What you're about to hear might just shock you. Number 1. Ending rent control exemptions. One of the most controversial changes in the new 2025 Texas law is the removal of rent control exemptions, and it's about to hit thousands of renters hard. In simple terms, this part of the law gives landlords in previously protected areas the green light to raise rent with little to no limits. Cities like Austin, Dallas, and Houston that had local measures in place to prevent sudden, steep rent hikes may now lose that control altogether. The state is essentially overriding local protections, stripping away a key safety net for low and middle-income tenants. Why does this matter so much? Because rent isn't just going up by a few bucks. In some cases, we're talking about rent increases of 30%, 50%, even 100% overnight, and tenants will have zero legal defense to fight it. Many of these people are already living paycheck to paycheck, and a sudden spike like that means they're instantly priced out. Families that have lived in the same apartment for years could be told their rent is doubling next month, and there's no law stopping it. No warning, no grace period. Just eviction notices and empty apartments waiting for wealthier renters to move in. Now picture this happening not to one or two people, but to entire neighborhoods. Communities that have been stable for decades could be broken apart, as landlords chase profit and renters are pushed out. Once rent control is gone, there's nothing to stop a wave of mass displacement, especially in areas where housing demand is high. This isn't just a financial issue, it's a social one. It changes the fabric of cities, pushes working people into poverty or homelessness, and creates a cycle that's incredibly hard to break. And yet, this is just the beginning. Number 2, criminalization of public camping. This part of the new law might sound straightforward on paper, but its impact is far more devastating than it appears. The criminalization of public camping means that anyone sleeping on sidewalks, in parks, under bridges, or in their car could now face fines, arrest, or jail time. Instead of offering support or shelter, the state is turning homelessness into a crime, and that creates a dangerous spiral for people already struggling to survive. Let's be clear. Many of the people affected have nowhere else to go. Texas doesn't have nearly enough shelter beds or affordable housing units to meet the growing need. So when someone is arrested simply for being homeless, it doesn't solve the problem. It just pushes them deeper into it. A criminal record makes it even harder to get housing or employment. And what happens next? They're released, right back onto the street, only now with court dates, legal fees, and the threat of repeat arrest hanging over their heads. This part of the law also sends a chilling message that being poor is a personal failure, not a systemic one. It punishes visibility, not the root cause. And while it might make some neighborhoods look cleaner in the short term, the reality is much darker. You're not solving homelessness by making it illegal to be seen, you're just hiding it, while pushing people further into trauma, instability, and danger. It's a short-sighted fix with long-term damage, and for many, it's a one-way ticket from hardship to hopelessness. Number 3, restrictive zoning reforms. At first glance, zoning laws might sound like dry, technical stuff only city planners care about. But in reality, these laws decide who gets to live where, and under the 2025 Texas reforms, that answer is shifting fast. The new law introduces more restrictive zoning policies, especially in high-demand urban and suburban areas. That means it's now harder than ever to build affordable housing, tiny homes, duplexes, or multifamily units in places where people actually need them. Instead, the law favors expensive developments and single-family homes, pricing out those on modest incomes. Why is this a big deal? Because zoning laws shape entire communities. When affordable housing is blocked from being built in wealthier or growing neighborhoods, people with lower incomes are forced to live farther and farther away from jobs, schools, and essential services. This results in longer commutes, higher living costs, and less access to opportunity. In other words, restrictive zoning becomes a quiet but powerful tool for economic segregation. It's not just about where people live, it's about who gets to live with dignity and stability and who doesn't. The most dangerous part? These zoning reforms often fly under the radar. They don't come with dramatic headlines or loud protests. They happen through quiet meetings, obscure paperwork, and legal language most people never read. But their effects are loud and clear. Fewer affordable homes, more displaced families, and a widening gap between those who can afford the Texas dream and those who are pushed to its edges, or out of it entirely. These laws might not physically evict people, but they block every path towards safe, affordable housing, leaving thousands stuck in limbo with no clear way out. Number 4. Elimination of certain tenant protections. Another major blow hidden in this new law is the removal of key tenant protections that once gave renters a fighting chance. These changes allow landlords to evict tenants faster, with less notice, and for more reasons, many of which used to be considered unfair or even illegal. Protections like requiring a 30-day notice before eviction, grace periods for late rent, or rules against sudden lease changes are being stripped away. What's left is a legal landscape that heavily favors property owners and leaves renters defenseless. Imagine this: you've paid rent on time for years, maybe even during the worst of the pandemic. But now, your landlord decides to sell the building or repurpose your unit. Under the new law, they could give you a 3-day notice and legally kick you out with no obligation to help you relocate. There's no time to prepare, no time to fight it, and for many, no place to go. And once you have an eviction on your record, it becomes much harder to rent anywhere else. There's a domino effect that can start from just one letter slipped under your door. These stripped-down protections aren't just technicalities. They're lifelines that millions of people depend on to stay housed. Without them, even the most responsible tenants can find themselves in a legal trap, outpaced by a system that gives them almost no room to breathe. It's a silent crisis, unfolding one household at a time, behind closed doors and locked mailboxes. And for thousands, it's not just about losing a roof. It's about losing stability, security, and any sense of control over their future. Number 5. Reduction in housing vouchers or state funding. Perhaps one of the most overlooked but devastating parts of the 2025 Texas law is the slashing of state funding for housing assistance programs, including rental vouchers, emergency housing support, and low-income housing development. These programs are the last line of defense for many families teetering on the edge of homelessness. Without them, thousands who rely on a little monthly help to cover rent will be left with nothing, and the effects could be catastrophic. Housing vouchers aren't just handouts. They're tools that allow low-income families, seniors, veterans, and people with disabilities to live in safe, stable environments, often while working full-time or caring for loved ones. But now, with state funding cutbacks and new limits on who qualifies, even those who have waited years on waiting lists might be told, "Sorry, there's nothing available." And for many, once that support is gone, eviction becomes inevitable, not because of bad decisions, but because the system simply gave up on them. This move sends a chilling message that the government is stepping back from protecting its most vulnerable citizens, even as housing costs climb and wages remain flat. Without state support, nonprofits and local shelters will be overwhelmed, and the safety net will tear at the seams. The people affected aren't strangers. They're working-class parents, retired teachers, single moms, and people with health conditions who simply need a little help to get by. Taking that away doesn't solve the housing crisis, it fuels it, and the long-term cost will be far greater than any budget cut saved on paper. This isn't just news, it's a wake-up call. If any part of this video hit close to home, drop a comment, not just to vent, but to be heard. We poured our hearts into researching and producing this, so if you found it valuable, support us with a like, a share, and a quick subscribe. It's just one click, but it means the world to us. And don't miss our last video on how housing laws are changing nationwide. It's eye-opening. Number 6. Ban on tiny homes and alternative housing. In a time when affordable housing is disappearing fast, Many Texans have turned to creative solutions, like tiny homes, modular housing, and converted trailers, as a way to live safely without going broke. But under the new 2025 law, these alternative housing options are being heavily restricted or outright banned in many areas. What's worse, in some cities, residents living in these dwellings could now be fined or forced to vacate, even if they've owned the property for years. It's a crushing blow to people who found their own way out of homelessness or housing insecurity, only to have that lifeline ripped away by the state. Supporters of the law argue it's about maintaining community standards or protecting property values. But for thousands of Texans, these homes aren't eyesores, they're lifelines. They're affordable, flexible, and in many cases, environmentally friendly. People build or buy them because traditional rent is too high, or because their credit or income doesn't qualify them for traditional housing. These aren't just tiny homes, they're a last chance at dignity and independence. Taking that away doesn't just displace people, it tells them that their way of surviving isn't good enough for the law. The ban on tiny homes and other non-traditional dwellings highlights a deeper issue. Our housing system often punishes innovation and self-reliance when it comes from the bottom up. Rather than supporting flexible, low-cost housing solutions that could help fight homelessness, the law doubles down on rigid definitions of acceptable living definitions that exclude the very people who need help the most. It's a move that protects wealthy neighborhoods, not struggling families. And once again, it shifts the burden from policymakers to the people just trying to survive. Number 7. New occupancy limits. Another hidden landmine in the 2025 Texas law is the introduction of strict new occupancy limits, which cap the number of people allowed to live in a single housing unit, even if the unit is large enough to comfortably fit more. On the surface, these rules are framed as a way to improve public safety or reduce overcrowding. But in reality, they're putting multi-generational families, roommates, and low-income households at serious risk of eviction and legal penalties, just for trying to share housing costs and stay together. In Texas, where housing costs have skyrocketed in urban and rural areas alike, many families survive by doubling up, 2 families in a 3-bedroom home, or several roommates splitting a small apartment to make ends meet. But with these new occupancy rules, even sharing a bedroom could violate local codes. That means more people forced to move out, live in their cars, or be separated from loved ones simply because the law now says too many people under one roof. It's not about safety, it's about enforcing housing scarcity. This kind of policy disproportionately hurts immigrant families, low-wage workers, and communities of color, where cultural norms often include extended family living under one roof. It also ignores economic reality. Many simply can't afford to live alone and shouldn't be punished for pooling resources. These occupancy limits won't stop poverty. They won't improve safety. What they will do is drive families out, increase the number of people searching for housing they can't afford, and push even more Texans toward homelessness, all under the guise of order. It's another example of how laws meant to clean up housing often end up tearing families apart. Number 8. Stricter ID requirements for shelters. One of the most quietly damaging changes buried in the 2025 Texas law is the implementation of stricter ID requirements for accessing homeless shelters and temporary housing services. On paper, this might sound like a simple bureaucratic update, proof of identity a standard check, right? But in reality, it means thousands of people could be turned away at the door, left to sleep on the streets because they can't provide the right paperwork at the worst moment of their lives. The people most affected by this aren't criminals or freeloaders. They're often victims of domestic abuse who fled without grabbing their ID, people with mental health issues who've lost their documents, or immigrants and displaced workers with limited access to official records. Even U.S. citizens, especially those who've been homeless long-term, may have no way to replace lost IDs without a permanent address. And now, with shelters legally required to turn them away, the law creates a brutal catch-22. No ID, no shelter. No shelter, no way to get help. This change turns what should be safe havens into locked doors, denying basic human dignity based on technicalities. It also puts more pressure on emergency services, hospitals, and even law enforcement, as people with nowhere else to go are left to fend for themselves in unsafe conditions. And when temperatures drop or storms hit, the results could be deadly. Stricter ID rules may look like a policy meant to prevent fraud, but in practice, it's a decision that sacrifices lives for the sake of red tape. It's one more way this law isn't just reshaping housing policy. It's actively shrinking the safety net, one silent policy at a time. Number 9. Rising utility regulation costs. Another hidden blow within the 2025 Texas law is the introduction of new utility regulations and surcharges, which may seem like small technical adjustments until the bills arrive. These changes allow energy companies and landlords to pass higher operational costs directly onto tenants, even in affordable housing units. And while a $50 to $100 increase in monthly utility bills might not sound like much to some, for families already struggling to pay rent, it can be the final push toward eviction or forced relocation. Let's break it down. When utilities like electricity, water, and gas suddenly become more expensive and no longer capped or regulated for low-income residents, the burden shifts entirely to those least able to afford it. Some landlords are already restructuring leases to separate utilities from rent, making these charges unpredictable and harder to contest. That means even if your rent stays the same, your total cost of living quietly climbs every month, often without warning. And with no assistance programs tied to these rising costs, renters are simply told to figure it out. This shift doesn't just hurt wallets, it damages stability. People start skipping other essentials, medication, groceries, transportation, just to keep the lights on. Families are forced into impossible choices, like heating their homes or buying food. And once they fall behind, the late fees start stacking up, leading to utility shutoffs, lease violations, and eventual eviction proceedings. It's a slow but steady squeeze, one that pushes working people off the edge without a single eviction notice being served. And it's all happening through small print, buried fees, and state-approved hikes that look legal, but feel deeply unjust. Number 10. Expedited eviction court proceedings. Perhaps the most chilling part of the 2025 Texas law is the new provision for expedited eviction court proceedings. A legal change that may sound efficient, but carries devastating consequences. Under this new system, landlords can now fast-track evictions, giving tenants significantly less time to respond, gather evidence, or seek legal help. In some cases, tenants could have as little as 72 hours between receiving a notice and appearing in court, where a judge could decide their fate in just minutes. Now imagine you're a single parent juggling 2 jobs, or an elderly renter without internet access or transportation. You get a legal notice on a Friday, and by Monday your hearing has already happened without you. No chance to defend yourself, no lawyer, no understanding of your rights. These changes tilt the scales of justice so heavily in favor of landlords that thousands of renters, even those with valid reasons or legal defenses, will be evicted without ever having their side heard. This isn't just about efficiency, it's about silencing the vulnerable. Eviction court has always been intimidating, especially for those without legal knowledge or representation. Now, it's practically a conveyor belt, processing people out of their homes with barely a pause. And once someone is evicted, even if the decision was unjust, the damage is done. Their record is stained, their housing options shrink, and their stability vanishes. With this final blow, the law doesn't just open the door to homelessness. It speeds up the path to it, leaving tenants powerless, unheard, and out in the cold. What's happening in Texas isn't just a policy shift. It's the start of a housing crisis that could uproot thousands of lives. These 10 changes, from rent control rollbacks to criminalizing homelessness, from blocking affordable housing to fast-tracking evictions, paint a clear picture. The system is being redesigned in a way that benefits the powerful and pushes the vulnerable further into the shadows. Let's be honest. Most people don't see a law and immediately think, this could put me on the street. But that's exactly why this matters. These changes won't just impact those already experiencing homelessness. They will affect working families, single parents, retirees, and young professionals, people who are doing everything right but are still one unexpected bill or legal notice away from disaster. And with fewer protections, fewer options, and less time to react, the margin for error is vanishing fast. But here's the truth: policy can be changed when people speak up. That's why it's so important to stay informed. Share this video and start conversations in your own community. Talk to your local representatives. Support organizations fighting for housing justice. And most importantly, don't look away, because what's happening in Texas today could be coming to your city next. If this video opened your eyes, hit the like button, subscribe for more updates on laws that affect your life, and share your thoughts in the comments. Have you or someone you know faced housing instability? We want to hear your story. And if you're ready to go deeper, check out our next video. How states are quietly changing housing laws across America. You won't believe how widespread this is becoming.